Girl Fight, a Muay Thai Story. Amazing film. I loved it. What was the inspiration?
Well, the inspiration for it really was just kind of goes into the origin story of the film itself. At the time, I was working for a TV production company. They had just started up, and they were looking to get pitches for new shows. And so I had just gotten this issue of a magazine called MMA Business, Mixed Martial Arts Business. And in it, there was a 2-page spread about this gym. It was the Girl Fight gym out in New Jersey. And I kind of read it, and I was like, this is pretty interesting because it's really the only all-female gym pretty much in the U.S. I mean, there's a few others, but this was really, one of the pioneering gyms of just all women training all the time. And I was just kind of interested in that. And so I went to my producers, and I showed them the article, and I was like, hey, I'd like to pitch this as a sizzle or, as a show or whatever. And they were just pretty much uninterested entirely. They didn't really want to hear much about it. So I was just...
Did they say why?
No, it was just they just didn't have any interest in it, I guess, for whatever reason. They didn't think it was that interesting. To me, it's an all-female gym out in the Jersey Shore. That right there, it's kind of a selling point, And this is not that far away from when the Jersey Shore was airing and all that stuff. They weren't interested, so I was just, I guess out of spite almost. I just took it upon myself to start filming it myself, and I figured, let me make a sizzle reel. Let me come to them after I have something to show and see if I can change their mind. And then once I started actually filming and putting things together, putting the pieces all together, I realized this wasn't really reality show fodder. This wasn't garbage TV. This wasn't a bunch of people arguing and yelling and having infighting with each other. This is a group of very supportive women who are training together, working through their problems together, working through their issues. It's a tight-knit family. It wasn't what we see on reality TV. It wasn't this kind of nonsense. It was real. And so I felt that the story needed to be told in a much longer kind of format. And then from there, it just naturally evolved into the documentary.
How did you approach the gym with this idea? How were they receptive at first?
They were pretty receptive, yeah. I mean, I believe Prairie had already had a few interviews done about her gym because it is such a unique thing to have an all-female kickboxing gym. So she had already done a few bits of things here and there with the press or whatever. But I kind of swept them and said, hey, I found your stuff interesting. I'd like to meet you, talk to you some more. And she agreed. So we went out to Toms River, New Jersey. We met. We did even an interview the first day. In fact, we did a bunch of interviews the first day just to kind of get a hang for things. And it went pretty well. They liked what we were doing. So joined up, touched gloves, went at it.
And so did you do that on your own, or you had a crew, or because you're basically, this is your baby, this is your movie.
It's a DIY documentary. It's a do-it-yourself kind of thing. So at the time, I had my friend Ken Maldonado, who had helped me out with the first doc I had done for my website. Excuse me. I went out with my friend Ken Maldonado, who had done the first documentary with me for my website. And so he was basically my, I guess you want to call him my AD, or even, I listed him as a producer as well in the film because he was helping schlep me out there every, few weeks or whatever to film. And he was also the second camera in most cases. So he was pretty much the A crew with me. And then here and there, we'd hire out some other people to do secondary cam work, especially at a lot of the fights. We filmed, I think, about 6 fight scenes. And so at those, I wanted to make sure we had a lot of people there. So for the most part, it was a 2-person crew. Occasionally, I'd have one other shooter here and there helping out. But for the most part, it was either me and Kenny or someone else from the crew. So pretty small, top to bottom.
That's interesting because when I was watching the fights, I said, oh, he must have bought the footage from the organization, but you actually had additional cameras in there.
Buying footage, that's a luxury. That's funny. No, we were lucky enough that Go Fight Live actually did let us use some licensed footage for the one of the fights in the film, which is just the story, though, the story about Prairie and Kate Allen. So that's the only licensed footage we used. Everything else was shot with my crew. So I did my best to have at least 3 to 4 cameras in all those fights. And that was really important because when you have a fight, especially when it's real, you want to get every angle because you don't know when that punch is going to come that might end the fight. So I'd have my camera, which is usually across from Prairie's corner, so I could see her in between rounds, or whoever was fighting, I could see who they were. I have another camera opposite from me so that they'd catch the other person's corner and get the opposite angle. And then usually there was another camera in the crowd just filming the audience. And there would sometimes be another camera, depending what we're doing. Either that would be on the coaches, or that might be on a referee, or it might just be a wider angle of things in slow-mo just to get different things. So, variety of shots because you don't know what's going to happen. It's completely unpredictable, and you got to be ready for anything.
One thing I loved about the movie, I have to say, is that it wasn't just only about fighting. It was actually about personal connections and goals and losses and I love how you weave that in. Why did you think that was so important?
Well, that really is the story. At the end of the day, I didn't want to make a movie about boxing or fighting. That's a gimmick almost. A lot of people will use, and I've seen plenty of other documentaries that are like that, where it's so focused on the fight that you lose the human, and then when you get to the human, it's so interesting, and they don't really have enough time to cover it. So to me, the real story was what these people are doing behind the scenes, before they get into the fights, after the fights, while they're getting ready for the fights, and what they do outside of fighting. Especially when you make a film about female fighters. The audience in general that you're going to probably target is ultimately going to be a lot of females. And, I can't speak for a lot of the audience, but a lot of them aren't into that kind of thing. They're not into fighting. They wouldn't normally watch a fight on their own. So the real key is how do I get them into the theaters to check this thing out and have an interest in it? And that's really just the deep story. The fighting is secondary, and the fights are, I've had good comments about the fights from people that aren't fight fans. They were really into it, but that's part of the drama that led into all those fights. That's really, the true narrative of this documentary.
Now, how hard was it to get them to open up? Was that difficult at all? Was it easy?
It's a process. With any documentary that you do, it's about creating trust and creating a connection with your subject, and that's not easy. It just comes really over time. I like to do a lot of interviews, a lot of sit-down interviews, a lot of on-the-fly interviews with them, because you never know what's going to happen. And you might ask the same questions 2 or 3 times in different settings, because they'll answer it differently depending on how they are, what their state of mind is, or even just where they are that day. So it comes down to a lot of that, just creating a natural trust. It took a while for some of them. With one of our people that we followed, Deanna, we actually had the very first sit-down interview we did, she pretty much was fighting back the urge to really break down. But then after that, it was a little bit harder. But we got her back eventually over time. So it's a little bit of trust, it's a little bit of timing, and just being lucky and getting it at the right moment, on the right day.
Now, from idea conception to finishing the film, how long did that take?
Well, the actual idea itself didn't even really materialize till probably about 6 months to a year into it, really. At first, I kind of went there with the idea that it was going to be a doc, just following them around. And, I figured it was just going to be a few months. I'd get their fight, they'd all walk away as winners, whatever. No, that didn't happen. That was after 3 months. So we were there for 18 months, just kind of waiting for everything to naturally come together, whatever that was going to be. I had an idea of what I wanted the story to be, but as with any documentary, it takes a life of its own as you continue to film. And that's really what happened here. Is I had my idea, that went out the window pretty quickly, and now it's just wait and see what happens and follow that story and make sure you honor that story when you get to the finished product.
Fighting has taught me how to just kind of deal with life a little better, and that a lot of things that people make a big deal about are not really that big of a deal.
Representing girl fight.
With each fight, I've done something different. This trip towards this fight is me actually coming in touch with that mental aspect.
I didn't plan on fighting when I came here. I just wanted to get back into shape after my son was born. As time went on, I guess I just wanted to get in the ring and fight.
Stronger, faster, leaner.
Let's go, Mendez. Let's go, baby. Let's go.
I want to show you that I'm skilled, I'm talented, and I can run with the best of them.
With Deanna, I think she's having some self-doubt.
Comes time for the fight, and if you can't get out of your own head, you may lose.
You've got to keep pushing when you start to feel that maybe you're not good at this, or maybe you're not as strong as someone else, and you got to keep training so that you find your own strength. I think you got on yourself too hard last time. I wouldn't put you in there if I didn't think you were capable of doing it. You get in there, you do what Mendez does.
I had a lot to prove for the girls. I just don't want to let anybody down.
Ladies and gentlemen, after 3 rounds of action in the featherweight division, we have a majority decision.